Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing an Alien Ogdoadic deck profile. So I'm really excited to show you guys this deck, because this was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Dean. And this deck is an absolutely insanely powerful combo deck. I love the way it plays. It's a really insane deck. It can go upwards of like plus 10, plus 13 in a single turn. And it combines two of the most interesting archetypes in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Both being Reptile from Aliens and Ogdoadic. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can comment part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name searched for every single video, getting assigned cards in the and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test hands. And definitely give Dean some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Nunu. Nunu is the most important card in the entire deck for the combos. It is a fantastic card. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to send any dark reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. And if you don't control a monster or you control an Ogdoadic monster, you can special summon this card from the graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. And you can't special summon monsters except for reptile monsters while this card is face up on the monster zone, which is a really good effect to be able to lock you in. So you're going to want to get it off the field really quickly. But you guys will definitely see in the test hands how to actually use this card to its maximum potential with all the combos, because basically with your combos you just have to open up a Nunu plus any other reptile to be able to go into those absolutely crazy busted plays. We then play 3 copies of Noya, the Ogdoadic Remnant. This card is really good too. It's basically a lot like Nunu. You discard this card from your hand to send a copy of a light reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. And if this card is normal or special summon, you get to add an Ogdoadic spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is always going to be your copy of your Ogdoadic Water Lilies. We then play a single copy of Zoha. Zoha is a great card for this deck and is going to be the card that you're going to be sending to the graveyard every single time off your copy of your Nunu. Because what this card does is if it's in your graveyard, you can discard a reptile or send a reptile from your hand to the graveyard to add it back to your hand to then normal summon it to your side of the field and overlay it with the Nunu that you revived out of the graveyard to make a King in the Feral Imps and then go for combos. We then play a single copy of the Ogdoadic Light. This card, when you can basically use this card while it's in your graveyard. You can treat a monster in your field to special summon this card back to your side of the field, and then special summon. Your opponent gets to also special summon a monster from their graveyard but negate its effect. And if this card is special summon, then you get to target 1 level 4 or lower Ogdoadic monster in your graveyard and special summon it but banish when it leaves the field, which can be your Nunu to search your copy of your Water Lilies. We then play a single copy of the Ogdoadic Dark. This card helps you recover your banished monsters, because it has the ability, and if this card is in the graveyard, you can treat a monster to special summon this card, and then your opponent can add 1 monster from their graveyard to their hand. And if this card is special summoned, then you get to target 2 of your banished monsters, including reptile monsters, and then return them to their graveyard, which is really good to help you recover your cards. We then play a single copy of the Ogdoadic Queen. The Ogdoadic Queen is really good in the deck because this card has the ability that if this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters, special summon this card, and if you special summon a monster, if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's graveyard, then you can send 1 card they control to the graveyard, and if a monster is sent from your opponent's hand or deck to the graveyard, then you can special summon a light or dark reptile monster from your graveyard, except another copy of itself, which is a great boss monster for the deck. We then play a single copy of Arin, the Ogdoadic King. Arin is a really good card and is a really good card to leave on your side of the field, because it has the effect that if it's in your graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters to special summon this card, and if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, then you can send a random card from their hand to the graveyard, basically being a Dark Law, almost ripping cards out of their hand. And if a monster your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard, you can add a light or dark reptile monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, which helps the deck a lot to get you additional searches. For the last Ogdoadic monster, we're playing the Ogdoadic Boss monster, which is the Overlord, and this card is basically a board wipe. It's very hard to summon with its own requirements, but it's easy to summon in this deck because of the combos that you guys will see. But basically what this card does is when it's on the field, once you can board wipe and send every monster on the field to the graveyard except itself, which is really good to just be able to send all the face-up cards that were special summoned from the graveyard back to the graveyard, which is just a really good effect. And when this card is face-up on the field, quick effect, you can send all monsters from the field to the graveyard except face-up monsters that were special summoned summon from the graveyard, which is usually just going to be himself on the field for the different combos that you have in the deck. And it does require 3 monsters to special summon it back from the graveyard, but you can special summon it by other means like Water Lily and having like 5 of your Ogdoadic monsters or reptiles in the graveyard. So getting into the alien package, we're playing 3 copies of Stealth Buster. This card is arguably one of the most important cards in the entire deck because when this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to target 1 face-up monster on the field and place 2 A counters on it, which gets all of our plays rolling in this deck. So this card is a really good card to play, and it also has the ability that you can banish this card from your graveyard to target a card with an A counter and destroy it. So it also gives you a pop, which is really good. We play 2 copies of Alien Kid. Alien Kid is just such a good card because it lets you do a really awesome thing. It lets you put A counters on all monsters special summon to your opponent's side of the field, and if a monster with an A counter battles an alien monster, it loses 300 attack and defense for each A counter on it during damage calculation only, which is a really good effect, but you can actually one-sided Bagooska your opponent with this card, which is why it's such an important card for the deck. We then play 3 copies of Alien Ammonite. I love Alien Ammonite in this deck because you can do a lot of follow-up plays in this deck with this card, because when it's normal summon, you can special summon a level 4 or lower alien monster from your graveyard, destroy it during the end phase. But you can actually make the big boss monster the Cosmic Golgoroth, which is a really good card to actually summon in this deck, and it's just a powerhouse of a monster. You can also use this card for link plays, which is really good about what it does. We then play a single copy of Alien Overlord for the last alien card. It's basically a free special summon because you remove 2 alien counters from anywhere on the field to special summon this card from your hand, and then once per turn you can place an A counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls, and if a monster with an A counter battles an alien, it loses 300 attack and defense for each A counter on it during damage calculation only, and you can only control 1 of it, but that's not a problem because we're only playing 1. So that's it for the aliens and the Ogdoadics for the deck. Let's get into the generic reptile support that we're playing. So for the generic reptiles, we're playing 3 copies of Kage Tokage. Kage Tokage is a really good card in this deck because it has a really awesome effect that basically when you normal summon a level 4 monster, you can special summon this card out behind it, but it's a reptile monster. It helps us make rank 4s, so it's a fantastic 3 of in the deck. 1 copy of Masked Chameleon because you can use this card with the Bishki Bulkin combo to go directly into your copy of Magma to go into a Bishki Bulkin. So this card is a fantastic card for this deck. You play a single copy of the Reptilian Lamia because this card can actually make a lot of different plays and is a very key card in a lot of your combos. So it's really good to have a tuner monster in the deck that's a level 2. We play some Pendulum Scales as well, so we can Pendulum Summon, which is a single copy of Performapal Swing Cobra and a single copy of Performapal Draw Lizard. These cards are very, very good in the deck because basically you're just playing them for their scales of 2 and 6. So you can Pendulum Summon out your level 4 monsters. These cards are very, very important. You never want to draw into them, but you do want to be able to add them from deck to hand off your Echidna to go into all sorts of different plays. And it's also very important to play the Draw Lizard because you can pop it with its own effect to get you an additional draw, and it also triggers the effect of your copy of your Unchained Abomination, which comes in very, very handy in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Sideframe Gear Gamma and a single copy of Driver because you really want to go into your plays. So this basically stops your opponent's hand traps by hand trapping them when you don't control a monster, but usually your first turn play is dipping or dropping the copy of your Nunu to the graveyard, and once you drop that copy of Nunu to the graveyard, you're going to go into all your combos, but you don't want to get Ash Blossomed right there. That is the key point of this deck, that you don't want to get Ash Blossom, so you play the 3 copies of Sideframe Gear Gamma to stop the Ash. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're playing a single copy of Foolish Burial, which just sends the exact reptile we need to the graveyard when we need it. 2 copies of a Cell Device. This card is really, really good in the deck because it has the ability to target a face-up monster on the field, send an alien monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, place A counters on that monster equal to the level of the monster sent. And then during your main phase, except to turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card to add an alien monster from your deck to your hand. This card is a 2 of in the deck because you don't want to draw into multiple copies of this card. 2 is plenty, you'll see it enough in this build, and it's an additional Foolish Burial, which is pretty much all the spells in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Water Lilies. Water Lilies is a Monster Reborn and a Foolish Burial, and is a really awesome combo piece for our combos, because it lets us send a reptile from the deck to the graveyard. If we have 5 or more reptiles with different names in the graveyard, you can special summon a reptile back to your side of the field, which is extremely important for our combos. We then play 3 copies of Snake Rain, which is arguably the best reptile card in the entire game for this deck, and it lets you discard a reptile to send 4 reptiles from your deck to the graveyard, which is just so good to send all the cards that you need from your Ogdoadic Light, Nunu, Noya, and your copies of Zoha. This is a great card for this deck, and if you open up this card, you pretty much win the game because you're going to get so many plays right off the bat. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're playing 2 copies of the Cosmic Slicer. Cosmic Slicer is just a really, really good card. What this card does is basically monsters your opponent controls with A counters are changed to defense position, and also neither player can activate their effects, which is the big thing about playing Alien Kit on their field, on your side of the field, because it gives A counters to every monster they special summon. So combo with this, they're basically one-sided Bagooskiing your opponent where they can't activate monster effects if they special summon it. This card also has a really neat effect that if this card is link summoned, you get to add 1 card from your deck to your hand that has an effect to place A counters on monsters, and you can also remove 2 A counters from anywhere on the field to immediately this card resolves normal summon a reptile monster. This card is a great boss monster. It's a card that you're going to end a lot of your combos with, and it's a really good alien boss monster in the deck as well. We then play a single copy of the Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. M-Frame I just play as one of. I did consider playing 2, and I will tell you guys, I did consider dropping a King of the Feral Imps for a second copy of this, but I ended up just going with the second copy of King of the Feral Imps. It has the ability that you get to quick effect, discard a monster, and then place A counters equal to the original level on the face-up monsters at the time of the monster being discarded, and then you get to distribute them as you wish, which is really good. It also has the ability, if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon non-link reptile monsters with different names from your graveyard up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with A counters on them. Being able to activate your Unchained Abomination to pop this card to be able to go into additional plays and special summon back a bunch of your monsters, essentially being a walking soul charge, is really good. We then play a single copy of Reptilian Echidna, and this card is the most broken card in the entire deck. What this card does is if your opponent controls a monster with 0 attack, you can draw cards equal to the number of monsters that they currently control with 0 attack. And with Bishki Bulkin, we can actually give our opponent 5 tokens that have 0 attack, getting us you can actually add reptiles from your deck to your hand that are any reptile that you want equal to the number of monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack. So getting you to add 5 of any reptile you need is really good. You're always going to want to search your pendulum scales with this card because you're then going to be able to pendulum summon the other 3 monsters that you added from deck to hand, or other 2, and then grab 1 for your M-Frame for later. We play a single copy of Reproductosaurus, so we can change something to a reptile so we can go for our other monsters. We play a single copy of Unchained Abomination because it gives us all sorts of crazy plays and just pop stuff for free in this deck. 1 copy of Bishki Bulkin because it's going to give everybody tokens and help us link climb, and also get into the broken combo of giving our opponent 5 tokens with 0 attack points, which is just really crazy. 1 copy of Geomathmech Magma because it's a tuner monster. You can actually use this with the Ogdoadic Light to go into your Bishki Bulkin, which is part of the combos you will see in the test hands. 1 copy of Reptilian Hydra. Reptilian Hydra is extremely good in this deck because when it's synchro summoned, it destroys all face-up monsters on the field with 0 attack that your opponent controls, and then you draw 1 card for each monster destroyed. It doesn't say sent to the graveyard, it just says destroyed. So if you destroy the tokens, you get to draw, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Cosmic Fortress Golgoroth, which is another fantastic alien boss monster. It's really easy to synchro summon into this card, and then once per turn, you can select any number of face-up spells and traps and return those targets to the hands of the owners. Then you distribute A counters on monsters equal to the number of cards returned, and then once per turn, you can remove 2 A counters from anywhere on the field to destroy a monster your opponent controls, which is really good to just give us additional pops on a 2600 attack point monster. We then play 2 copies of King of the Feral Imps. You detach a material in this card to add any reptile you want from your deck to your hand. We then play a single copy of number 97 because it's going to get us into some insane boss monsters, like your copy of your number 38 and number 100 to give you a 9,000 attack point monster. I will say I did consider dropping the number 97 package out of my build because I figured I could play another copy of M-Frame and some other Link monsters like IP Masquerena and my copies of Unicorn. So that is an option for you guys if you do want to drop those for other plays to make the deck a little bit more budget, but it's still relatively budget with your copies of your number 100. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I really love the combos for this deck. I'm so excited that Dean actually suggested this deck because the deck is so fun. Like, it's really fun to play. I hope you guys do check out the test hands when they do drop on the channel. They should be dropping the following day after the deck profile, so be on the lookout for those test hands because they are crazy what you could do with this deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.